Hello guys, welcome back to my channel to another video. I hope you are all in good health. In today's video, we are going to look at how you can prove your funds in your Canada study permit visa application and the documents you need, the required documents you need to show proof of funds. When you are doing your visa application for a study permit, one of the tedious things that people need to wrap their heads around has to do with your proof of funds. How are you going to prove your funds? So in this video, we are going to look at how you can prove your funds, the documents required as proof or evidence of your funds, and then we will also look at how you can calculate your proof of funds so that you'll be certain about the amount of money that ordinarily or basically you should have in your bank account, or you should have at your disposal as evidence of your proof of funds. Okay, so if you are interested in knowing more about this, stick around and watch the video till the end. Okay guys, welcome back to my channel. Let's begin with how you can prove your funds. The Canadian government or IRCC is very much particular about how well you can support yourself when you are granted the visa to come and live in Canada. They allow individuals to come to Canada as international students, and international students are also allowed to come into Canada with their families. But the Canadian government doesn't want a situation where people come into Canada and they struggle. Because with the first year or the first time you arrive in a country, you need to deal with getting accommodation, getting food, transportation, all of those things, and they come with cost. And most of the times when you arrive, you don't get work immediately. So it becomes difficult if you don't have enough money at your disposal coming in as an international student. So to avoid that, the Canadian government has put in place certain thresholds that an international student needs to meet in terms of the financial capability or capacity in order to be qualified for a study permit visa, right? So now let's look at how you can prove your funds as an international student. What documents do you need to submit as part of your application? One, you can prove your funds with a bank statement of about 4 months. So you should have a bank statement of about 4 months, indicating that you have regular source of income in that bank statement. The good news about this is that it doesn't necessarily have to come from just you. It can be your bank statement or the bank statement of a sponsor, somebody who is sponsoring you, ready to give you an amount of money to help you come to Canada or to help you in your studies. It can be more than just one person. You can have 2 sponsors or even 3 sponsors. But the important thing is that when they give you their bank statements of 4 months, it should show a certain amount of money in their bank statements. Apart from the bank statement, you can also use a student or education loan. You can take a student loan from your bank if you are working, and you can secure a loan from your bank. It should, and the purpose of the loan should be for educational purposes. So you can secure a loan from your bank as proof of funds for your study. But remember, when you secure a loan, you should get the documentation of the loan so that you can use that documentation to prove to the officer that you have secured this amount of loan, which is going to help you or assist you in your study and your stay while in Canada. Number 3, you can also use a bank draft that can be converted into Canadian dollars. So you can have a banker's draft. This banker's draft can be from you or from somebody else who is sponsoring you. So with the banker's draft, you don't have the physical cash, but you have the bank draft, the documents with the amount of money indicated on it. So when you add that, you tell the visa officer you have an amount of this money in a banker's draft, and that when you come to Canada and you convert it, it's going to give you this amount of Canadian dollars. So that can also be used as proof of your funds. Apart from this, you can also use your paid tuition. If you have paid your tuition fee, the receipt you have, the receipt for the tuition fee can also be used as proof. Then again, you can also use if you are on scholarship, if you've secured a scholarship, whether from your school or from an organization, you can use the offer of scholarship documents as your proof of funds. Usually the offer of scholarship is going to indicate how much the school or the government or the organization is giving to you in support of your education. So you can use that offer of scholarship letter as part of your proof of funds. Again, you can use a bank account registered in your name in Canada as your proof of funds. So let's say, for instance, you have a family member here in Canada, and then the person opens an account in your name and then deposits some amount of money into your name. You can use the documentation on that account, the statement from that bank account, as proof of your funds, right? Or somebody could have opened an account for you here in Canada, and then you transferred money into that account. When you do that, you can also use that account as proof of funds. Lastly, you can use your properties as proof of funds. Do you have a house? Do you have a business? Do you have a car? Anything that can be valued in terms of property wise, you can use that. Now, you can either sell that property and put that money into your account as part of your proof of funds, or you can value that property, right? You can evaluate the worth of that property, and then you use the value of that property as part of your proof of funds. I don't know if I'm making, if you get what I'm saying. Okay, so let me break it down a little bit. So let's say I have a car, and the value of that car is about 10,000 Canadian dollars, right? I haven't sold the car yet, but I have all the documentation of the car in my name. In my visa application, as part of my proof of funds, I can say that I have this car which is valued at this amount of money in Canadian dollars. So I have this car whose value is 10,000 Canadian dollars. At the time I will be starting school, I am going to sell this car and I'm going to get this amount of money. So I can add that value into my calculation. So I can conclude that the car is going to give me 10,000 Canadian dollars. Then probably in my bank account, I have 2,000 Canadian dollars. So in all, I can say that I have an amount of 12,000 Canadian dollars at my disposal at a time I will be coming to Canada to begin my studies. So these are some of the ways by which you can prove your funds. In summary, you can prove your funds with a bank statement, either your own or somebody's, showing regular inflow of money for about 4 months. You can use your properties or the value of the property. You can use a bank draft, your paid tuition fee. If you have a bank account in Canada with money deposited into that account, you can also use it. If you are on scholarship or you have secured a scholarship, you can use the documentation of that scholarship as part of your proof of funds. So let's go into how you can calculate your proof of funds. How do you calculate your proof of funds? How much money do you really need to show as proof of your funds? Okay, so in this particular phase, I'm going to give you about 3 or 4 scenarios, right? And we are going to do a little bit of calculation here. So please come along and let's do the calculation here. Whatever figure I am going to put out is just for the purposes of this video. You need to make what I said to you applicable in your situation, right? So I'm going to give you an amount of money that RLCC, that is the Canadian Immigration, expects you to have at least in your bank account. And then we will look at other things that you need to have. So we are going to look at the money RLCC expects from you, in addition to what you need to add to it. And then we will look at the basic amount of money you should have in your bank account or at your disposal at the time you're doing your visa application, right? Okay, so let's jump straight into it. Now we are going to look at it from with 3 or 4 scenarios. Okay, so if you are coming to Canada as an international student, you can come alone. If you are one person, just you, the student. So the first scenario is if you are coming alone as a student, how much do you need? Okay, so RLCC expects that if you are coming alone as a student, you should have an amount of 10,000 Canadian dollars at your disposal for your living expenses. It's basic. You must have it. You should be able to prove it, that you have 10,000 Canadian dollars as living expenses at your disposal. Now, when you have that 10,000 Canadian dollars, you need to factor your tuition into it. So let's say your tuition is also 10,000 Canadian dollars. So 10,000 Canadian dollars for living expenses, 10,000 for your tuition, making it 20,000 Canadian dollars. This means that if you are coming in as a student alone, without any spouse or children or common law partner, you should have the 10,000 plus your tuition fee. You can go further to add your flight. So let's say your flight is going to cost you about 2,000 Canadian dollars. That's an example. So you need 10,000 for living expenses, 10,000 for your tuition, and then 2,000 for your flight, which gives you an amount of 22,000 Canadian dollars. What this means is that at the time you are doing your application, you should be able to prove to the visa officer that you have an amount of 22,000 Canadian dollars at your disposal. Are we okay? Okay, so let's move to the next scenario. This scenario is when you are coming in with your spouse. Okay, when you are coming in with your spouse, either your husband or your wife or your common law partner. So when you are coming in with your spouse, now, you, the student, RLCC expects you to have 10,000 Canadian dollars. Okay, when you are coming in with your spouse, RLCC expects your spouse to be able to prove an amount of 4,000 Canadian dollars. So if the two of you are doing the application together, what it basically means is that your living expenses of 10,000, then you add that to the living expenses of your spouse, which gives you an amount of 14,000. Now, that is not all. When you have that 14,000 Canadian dollars, then you the students, you add your tuition fee, which is 10,000 Canadian dollars. That gives you an amount of 24,000 Canadian dollars. You are not done. Then you factor in your flight. So if the cost for a person's flight is 2,000, it's going to be times 2, right? So 4,000 Canadian dollars. So in all, if you are coming in with your spouse, you need to be able to prove about an amount of 28,000 Canadian dollars. Please note that the final amount here is just for the calculation purposes, but you should be able to prove 10,000 as a student, 4,000 for your spouse as living expenses. You add your tuition fee, then you add your flight fee. So you take this calculation, you make it applicable to yourself, then you know how much you need to show or prove as funds in your study visa application. Let's look at the third scenario. The third scenario has to do with when you are coming in with additional members of your family, and these additional members are usually your children, right? Okay, so let's go back. As a student, you are supposed to show proof of funds of 10,000 Canadian dollars as your living expenses, right? Your spouse has to show 4,000 Canadian dollars as living expenses. Then any additional member has to show 3,000 Canadian dollars, right? So the students 10,000, the spouse 4,000, making 14,000. If you are coming in with one child, 3,000. So for your living expenses alone, as a family of 3, you should show an amount of 17,000 Canadian dollars. When you have this 17,000 Canadian dollars, then you add your tuition fee and then the flight fee for the 3 of you. Are we okay? Okay. Now, let's say you have 2 children or 3 children. For each child, you need to prove funds of 3,000 Canadian dollars. So let's look at the fourth scenario of coming in with 2 children. So 10,000 Canadian dollars for the student, 4,000 for the spouse, making 14,000. 3,000 for your first child, making 17,000. 3,000 for your second child, making 20,000 Canadian dollars, right? If you have a third child, you add another 3,000, which will be 23,000 Canadian dollars. If you have another child, so you continue adding 3,000 Canadian dollars for any additional member of your family. So if you are coming in as a family of 4, you need to prove an amount of 10,000 plus 4,000, 14,000, plus 3,000, 17,000, plus 3,000, which is 20,000 Canadian dollars as your living expenses. When you have this 20,000 Canadian dollars as living expenses, then you add the tuition fee of the student to the 20,000. You add your flights as a family of 4. When you have that amount, what it means is that in your application, you should be able to prove that you have that particular amount of money available and accessible to you at the time you are doing your application, in order to convince the visa officer that you can actually take care of yourself and all members of your family if you are granted the visa to come to Canada. Okay, so in brief, in summary, if you are coming to Canada as an international student and you want to come in either alone or with your family, you need to take all these costs into consideration. Do your own calculation. Look at your tuition fee. Look at the amount of money you are expected to show as your living expenses, which is mandatory by RLCC. Do all those calculations, and then you juxtapose it against the amount of money you have in your bank statement, and then you make sure that whatever amount of money you are going to use as proof in your application, you have more than what you are expected to prove. I hope you understand. Which means that if you are a family of 4 and you are expected to prove living expenses of 23,000 Canadian dollars, and the student's fee is about 10,000, making 33,000 Canadian dollars. What this means is that in your application, you cannot prove any amount of money below 33 Canadian dollars. You either prove exactly 33 Canadian dollars or more than that. If you prove less than that, it means that you are not capable of taking care of yourself if your visa is granted for you to come and study in Canada with your family. For that reason, your visa application may be refused because you could not prove that you have enough funds to support your study and your family while here in Canada. So whilst you are taking the decision and you are making your applications, remember to do these calculations and ensure that you have enough money, more than the basic requirements in your documentation, to show proof of your funds. Thank you so much for watching this video. If it was helpful, kindly give it a thumbs up, share and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, you can put it in the comment section and then I'll respond to you. My name is Grace Opare and welcome to my channel. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.